This is Conversations with Women in Sales, an award-winning podcast created by Barbara Giamanco, who hosted the first 67 episodes. Listen to interviews with amazing women about their journeys in their sales careers, often discussing sales leadership tips, ideas, and strategies. We aim to inspire women to consider a sales career and for some women to grow into sales leadership. Men, we appreciate your allyship. And now, your host, Lori Richardson.
A big thank you to our sponsor, Skillibrium, for their support of this podcast. Leave subjectivity aside with Skillibrium, where talent meets excellence and innovation to build the next generation of human-centric sales leaders and high-performing teams. I'm here today with Deirdre Sommerkamp, and Deirdre is Chief Solutions Officer at Skillibrium, who is the sponsor of this podcast, Conversations with Women in Sales. We're really happy to have them involved, and they're going to be at least a couple of episodes where we're talking to women in Skillibrium. And so today is Deirdre, and you have such an interesting background because you've been in and around sales for much of your career, and companies like Upland Software, Qvidian, who I used to do some work with, and you started your career, though, in customer success and professional services. So now you're involved in how people learn and the whole coaching aspect. Can you give us some background on what you wanted to do for a career and how it evolved? And welcome.
Thank you so much. Absolutely, Laurie. Thank you for having me. So first of all, I did start my career in SaaS tech in customer success and professional services. And it's interesting because at the time, they were combined. They weren't two separate functions.
Right.
In fact, we worked with sales as solution consultants. We implemented customers. We supported them post-sales. So in a way, what I'm doing now, leading the pre as well as post-sale functions at Skillibrium, is a return to that sales-led model where we all support the sales organization in revenue growth in a streamlined and efficient way.
That's great. So you're bringing together all these things you've learned over the years into what must be a really awesome role for you, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, my real interest and curiosity in working with sales began when I worked with and for the head of marketing at Fisher Scientific. She had a PhD in nuclear physics, and she ran marketing, and she was a true partner with the head of sales. And this was before they merged with Thermo, and they were about $6 billion in revenue at the time. I got to lead several large initiatives that crossed multiple business units and geos in the areas of customer experience, branding, and sales effectiveness. And as part of the sales effectiveness initiative, I got to shadow sellers from several business units in the field, and it was an eye-opening exercise. Sellers were spending 2 hours each week to generate reports that they sent up to corporate.
Wow.
And corporate never looked at the report.
Of course.
When we saw that, we eliminated that and other things like that so that they had more time available to spend with buyers. And that initiative is what sparked my desire to work with sales and revenue teams to help make them more effective.
Oh, that's interesting. And then because of the relationships you've kept over the years, I know we talked about this ahead of time, you're working again with people you've worked with before. And tell us about how important that is to do a good job when you're with people and then keep in touch with them over time.
That's a great point. I am definitely someone who likes to make strong relationships and keep relationships going. In fact, I joined Cadient, which had a product called Sales Playbooks and Analytics, and we merged with the Sant Corporation to form Qvidian. And at Qvidian, I met Bart Finelli in the team at Splunk, and he had come from BMC Software and had a paper-based playbook that he wanted to automate. So we partnered with Bart and team to implement sales playbooks. And I'm sure you know the Splunk story, and it's in his book, The Success Cadence. But for anyone unfamiliar, the short version is they implemented sales playbooks and implemented coaching and practicing, and they grew from 60 million to 1.5 billion in
Huge.
7 short years.
Yeah, it was a huge success story. It was really.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a repeatable cadence of learning, practicing, executing, and coaching. It worked at BMC before Splunk. It worked at OutSystems after Splunk. And now we're helping companies implement this proven approach. And that's really why sales execution is truly my passion. And so that's what's been able to make working with Bart and the team at Skillibrium possible, is keeping those relationships strong over the years.
Yeah. And I've seen that in my own career where I still keep in touch with people that I worked with 20 years ago, which is pretty funny. We're going to Cape Cod pretty soon, and we're going to meet up with a bunch of people that I worked with years ago. And it's because they're really good people, they're quality people. This one company, CCBN, where I worked, it was ultimately sold to Thomson Reuters. And it was just the greatest group of folks who went on to build companies and lead companies. Just an amazing group. And I can't stress enough, like we were talking about, the importance of keeping in touch with people like that. Not when you need something, but just to say, how are you doing and what's going on? And I'll look through my LinkedIn. I use Sales Navigator so I can keep track of where people are and check in with people, see how they're doing, and do it when you don't need something. That's my advice to people that are coming up.
I love that so much. I like to think of it as work-life harmony. I truly think the two can go together. And I've made some of my best friends in work. It's
Yeah.
when you love what you're doing and you love the people that you're working with, why wouldn't you, as you said, go on vacation with them and do things outside of work?
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us more. Let's talk about coaching a little bit. It's very underused. Everyone in sales seems to agree that people should be coached, but managers never have time to do it, apparently. What have you been learning at Skillibrium about just-in-time learning? And that because of my background in education, I know that people need, especially adults, need repetition reinforcement to really gain skills. And we need to do some hands-on work and not just listening, right?
Yeah, I think you summed it up really well. Both sellers and managers, leaders, they need just in time coaching. They need the coaching that's in context to what they're doing, right? They need short sound bites of information, especially micro learning videos, and then access to more detailed info if they want it, right? So that might be, here's a short learning video that's 2 minutes long and a link to more information that will give them additional details. They're looking for things, especially in the context of deals that they're working. So it might be stage specific information or relative to a specific activity they're performing. They can't have everything, all the coaching just thrown at them in a way that isn't bite size or in context to the thing that they're actually doing. And to your point, they need to actually be doing it.
Yeah, when you mention context, I think that's the key because you can go on LinkedIn or not LinkedIn, I'm sorry, but you can go online and you can certainly learn a lot on LinkedIn, but you can all over the internet, you can learn things, but they're not in context with your buyer, what industry your buyer's in, the size of the company, the type of people that you're working with, how many people you're working with. There's so many things that you need the contextual information. And I'm excited that technology is able to help bring us closer now to you being able to send me something that is bite sized, that is very contextual for the deal I'm working on with the people I'm talking to. That's a big change from what we've seen in the past. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of information and I have to figure it out on my own. Now there's more contextual help. Would you agree that that's what you're doing?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. And I think one of the mistakes that I've seen organizations make is they'll have a methodology, which is really the learning or the how to sell as a skill set. And then they have their sales process, and the two are completely separate.
Yeah.
The ability to take the how to sell in that methodology and combine it with your sales process is magical because you're giving people what they need when they need it and in the context.
That's great. And that's what you do at Skillibrium?
Absolutely. So, as part of the Skillibrium platform, we have learning, coaching, executing, and practicing all in the same platform. And our executing component is a automated sales playbook, which is really the sales process plus any in context learning, any tools and resources that the team needs. Discovery guide, it has a bunch of really cool features.
Oh, that's great. And then there's a practicing component. Tell us a little bit about that because I'm curious.
Sure. So today we have coaching and executing. Learn is coming out at the beginning of August, and practicing will be shortly after that. But what's cool about Skillibrium is we have a combination of advisory services and technology that brings the principles of the success cadence to life so that organizations of any size can benefit. It's this holistic approach to those 4 areas of learning, practicing, executing, and coaching, all in the same platform. So while we're building, practicing, for example, we do some advisory services such as like a stand and deliver, which we can do the practicing outside of the platform until it's actually inside the platform.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So there's no delay in
There's no delay.
when getting help.
Yeah, and that's what's really cool about working with a team of experts in go-to-market and who have sales and revenue in their background is that we've been doing this on our own or doing it with some technology, but filling in the gaps where we needed to.
Yeah.
But now, again, what is really cool about Skillibrium is it's putting all of that into one platform. In one of our co-founders, Carrie Barton, she has a background in L&D, very strong. So
Learning and development for those.
in development. So taking that background, she's structured curriculums in a phenomenal way that is creating learning paths based on what people need, right? So it's not just this, here, everyone, drink from the fire hose on everything you all need to learn. There's an assessment component that can then serve up areas that person needs improvement on for skills, as an example.
Yeah, that's great. So what are you most excited about right now that you're working on?
I would say the thing that I'm most excited about is twofold. One, it is working with this amazing team that I've kept in touch with over the years, which we just have a blast working together, and it is so much fun. The second part is working with customers that are looking to take the principles of the success cadence and make them operational in their business. They're seeing some dramatic improvements in their messaging and as well in their effectiveness of their go-to-market team. So that's phenomenal. Being able to collaborate together in one platform really improves visibility for leaders.
Yeah, and that converts into revenue when you're working with the sales organization, which is really exciting. That's what I like about what I do as well. That's fantastic. Anything that you're reading or podcasts that you like? Anything off the top of your head, book or podcast?
Yeah, it's funny. A couple of years ago, I did this challenge with a group of other women where we did 52 books in 1 year.
Wow.
That was so much. It was looking back on it now, I did have to reread, and some of them I did by Audible. I had to reread some of the books, but that year of doing that changed my life. So I actually do have a really strong book list, happy to give it to you. But some of my favorite books, I'd say, are Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Yep.
That's probably one of my favorite. Certainly The Success Cadence. I've reread that a couple of times. Fabulous book. There are just so many out there. I like them based on what it is I'm looking for, help or guidance or areas that I want to grow professionally and personally. Happy to provide a short list to you.
That's great. So this is Deirdre Sommerkamp. She's Chief Solutions Officer at Skillibrium. So happy to have you on and Skillibrium's involvement in this podcast. And we'll keep looking for new developments with the product and offerings. And I can't wait to dive in further with it. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Lori. It's a pleasure, and I absolutely love your podcast.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Conversations with Women in Sales. You can find all of our episodes at womensalespros.com/podcast. Help us spread the word, and let's change the face of B2B sales.